got Terry Healy. And just to tell you a little bit about Terry, Terry is a survivor of a rare and life-threatening form of cancer that left him with a permanent facial difference. He recognizes that it's human nature to notice a facial difference when people first begin a interaction. And recent research reveals that 79% of respondents with a facial difference say they just avoid applying for a job because they think that their appearance is going to hinder them in some way. This is why it's crucial to design a workplace environment that furthers acceptance and embraces those with differences. Terry's passion for this topic enables him to share effective strategies for HR departments to embrace visible differences, thus differentiating their organization from the competition. Today, Terry will present a talk titled Cultural Sensitivity, Workplace Sensitivity, and Approaches to Celebrating Visible Differences. Again, this topic will resonate with your clients in the healthcare sectors, the corporate sectors, and the educational sectors. Please do welcome Terry Healy.
Thanks, Winston. Hi, I'm Terry Healy, and today, as Winston said, I'm going to talk about workplace sensitivity and how organizations can celebrate visible differences. To give you some background on why this particular topic is so meaningful to me, when I was 21 years old, I was diagnosed with a very rare and life-threatening form of cancer that left me with a permanent facial difference. I survived, and I overcame that adversity and built a successful high-tech marketing career, including being on the founding team of a software company that we built into a successful initial public offering. And I feel very blessed I'm able to balance that work life with my other passion, which is reaching people, talking about these types of messages, as well as helping them overcome adversity, rebuild confidence for happiness, success, and purpose. But the key messages today that I'm going to talk about are how organizations can embrace those with visible differences, how they can celebrate them for the value that they can bring to the workplace, and ultimately how they can differentiate their organizations for a competitive advantage with an improved public image and a retention and recruitment advantage. So the reason this is important is that visible differences are a lot more common than I think most of us believe or think. There was a study in 2021 in the UK that found that 20% of the respondents self-identified as having a visible difference. Almost 80% of those said that they avoided applying for a job in their lives. 20% of that study also indicated they'd been passed up for advancement opportunities and they'd been prevented from serving in client-facing or customer-facing roles. But building an inclusive culture can be very advantageous. According to Boston Consulting Group, companies that have inclusive cultures have up to 3 times higher job satisfaction than those that don't. So what are some workplace sensitivity approaches that you can employ in your organization? We don't have time in the short amount of minutes I've got today to go through all the training, so I'll let you review those. But the one on this list that I like to talk about is job interview training. And what I mean by that is whenever there's a job opening in an organization, have a standard question across all roles. So every recruiter, every hiring manager, and interviewer would ask the same question. They ask something to the effect of, how did you overcome adversity and face life's challenges? It gives the candidate the opportunity to talk about a career situation or a personal situation. But if they talk about how they've overcome their differences in their lives, you'll hear amazing stories. You'll hear about how they learned skill sets, how they became better able to adapt and handle change. You'll hear about courage, resilience, character, and grit. So often those with differences can become better leaders and managers within organizations because when they reach that level, they bring more empathy to the organization, right? They're more comfortable with change, and they tend to be able to bring better life perspective. And then finally, I think there's this concept of servant leadership, which I think most of us are familiar with, but they can become better servant leaders because servant leaders are really focused on the well-being and growth of the people that work for them. And there are really 6 key principles of servant leadership. The one that I like to talk about the most is the one about being real. Being real is about being humble. It's about admitting when you're weak and asking your team to come up with solutions when there are problems and challenges in the organization. That shows a level of courage and vulnerability that really helps to build trust in an organization. So what are some things that you can do real time to embrace and celebrate differences and differentiate yourself in the marketplace? One of the things I like to talk about is icebreakers for meeting kickoffs. And what I mean by this in a short way is that if you're having an all hands meeting, say you have a quarterly all hands meeting or a cross departmental meeting, you're bringing 30 to 40 people together. Many of them may not have ever met each other in person. The idea is that you carve out 30 to 45 minutes at the beginning of the meeting and you ask everybody in the room to go around one by one and tell everyone in the room what makes them unique. It helps us learn about each other, get to know each other, and understand sensitivities. The other thing is to promote employee spotlights, I like to call them, or profiles. So let's say you have an internal, or maybe it's a customer-facing newsletter, goes out quarterly. Encourage people within the organization to bring personal stories of triumph about how they overcame a difference and allow them to share that. That's going to educate and it's going to inspire everyone. And then lastly, sort of similarly, in that all hands meeting that I mentioned earlier, if you've got a 2-day meeting, carve out 30 to 45 minutes of that meeting, and 2 months in advance of the meeting, ask people that are invited if they're interested in sharing a story about what they overcame and what personal growth they found from it. There's always great lessons for the business, right? So when hiring, job recruitment also offers a huge opportunity to differentiate yourself. So what I'm calling out in the white section here is just an excerpt from a Cisco Systems, the networking company ad for a lot of their jobs. You can go much further than this, right? But the idea is that you can demonstrate to candidates your inclusive culture, and younger generations, younger than me, that's for sure, tend to want to work for companies that are socially responsible. They like working for companies that have a social conscience, and that's going to improve recruitment and retention along the way. So the benefits are numerous, right? So diverse cultures are going to bring people with creativity and levels of innovation that you're not going to have without that. It's going to bring greater life perspective, which has also been proven in many studies to improve decision-making within organizations. I've already mentioned employee engagement and retention, but it's always good to reinforce. And then lastly, which I started with, is the improved public image. It goes a long ways to have this type of organization, not only for recruitment and retention, but for your investors, as well as for your customers who see what you're doing every day, that you're making a difference. Here are just, I have many topics that I speak about. The one on navigating life's roadblocks is based on a memoir that I wrote, and that's about my story overcoming my facial difference. The second one on frameworks to overcome adversity and rebuild confidence is based on my forthcoming book that's due out next year. And that's really a way to help people with all kinds of adversity deal with and implement strategies to help them rebuild confidence and overcome their own adversities. Thank you all for attending today and for listening. Happy to answer any questions.